So today we're doing lesson 2.6. We're about halfway through chapter 2. It's absolute value equation. So you're still solving equations, but when it comes to absolute value, there are two ways that you can solve an equation. So if we look down here at the absolute value of 7 equals 7, what are the possibilities that x can be to equal 7? Yes. Yeah, they can be -7 or +7. When you plug a -7 in here, the absolute value of -7 is 7. If you plug a +7 in, the absolute value of +7 is 7. So here, x can equal plus or minus 7. And this is how you can write it. All right. Now, please note that not every problem is going to have the same number. Okay, sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. And by the end of the lesson, you should be able to differentiate between what type of problems will have a plus or minus number and what problems will have two different numbers. Okay, now what can we place in this absolute value for x that will give us a -7? Okay, so the absolute value of 7 is -7.
So the x can be a 7 or -7, but then it's going to be -7.
Right. So there is nothing that x can be to give you a -7. So in this case, the answer is no solution. Okay. And that is your answer right there. Okay. So and Asher was right. The only way it could be a negative is if there was a negative on outside of the absolute value symbol. So since there is not a negative out there, then there is no solution for that problem. Okay, let's go down to the instructions on how to solve absolute value equations. So the first step says to isolate the absolute value on one side of the equation using the addition and multiplication properties of equality, moving everything else to the other side. What does that mean? Okay, well then let's look at number 2 first. Form two separate equations for the two possibilities, one set equal to the positive solution, one set equal to the negative solution. Notice that up here we said there are two possible answers for x. There are going to be two possible answers for this x as well. And we need to figure out what those are. The way that you figure this out is you set this absolute value equation up in two ways. X plus 3, which will give you a -5, and x plus 3 that will give you a +5. Okay, so there's two ways that you can set it up. All right, and then once you set up those two equations, then you just solve for x. Okay, so let's go ahead and solve these two equations for x. On this one, I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides. This one, I'm also going to subtract 3 on both sides. So you do the same step. But notice when you solve it, this one equals a -8, and this one equals a +2. So your answer could be x equals -8 or +2. And this would be your final answer.
So we pick which way we want to do it.
You have to do it both ways. Yes, you have to do it both ways. Okay, so let's look at this practice number 1. All right, I want you guys to set up your two equations. So you should have set up x minus 7 equals a 10, +10, x minus 7 equals a -10. It doesn't matter which one you set up first. And then you just solve for x. Okay, so I'm going to add 7 to both sides. Both of them. So your final answer is x equals 17 or -3. And again, it doesn't matter which one comes first. Okay. Any questions on that type of a problem? Okay, let's go down to one that involves multiplication and division. This is the same thing. You're gonna set up two equations, one equal to a -2, one equal to a +2. So 3x equals 2 and 3x equals a -2, and then you just solve it. Okay. Yep, you divide by 3 on both sides for both equations. Now in this case, notice that they're both the same number. So you can say x equals 2/3 or -2/3, but another way to write this is that x equals a positive and a -2/3. You can write it this way. So either way, it works for you. So basically what this is saying is that if you put -2/3 in here and you solve, you're gonna get 2. If you put +2/3 in here and you solve, you're gonna get 2. Okay, that's basically what that's saying. All right, try practice 2 on your own. All right, check your answer. I heard you say that there's a lot of problems, and yes, because this is the way that we're gonna learn it, is through a lot of practice. Because there's so many different variations of this type of a problem. Okay, let's go to the back. The next page, which is page 2. So what I would like to do is I would like to do all the examples with you on the left side, and then I'm gonna have you go back and do the practice problems on the right side. Okay, so here we have 4/5 x equals 8, so I'm gonna set this up twice. No, you don't have to check them, but it is a good way to see if you're correct. So it'll be up to you. So 4/5 x equals -8. Now, on these types of problems, if you remember from solving equations before, is that you have to multiply by the reciprocal on both sides. And we get, I can cross simplify this. So I get 10 here and -10 here. So x equals plus or minus 10. Any questions about that? Okay, let's go to example 4. So this is similar to what we did on the other side. We have 3x minus 4 equals 2 and 3x minus 4 equals a -2. But I believe on the front side, it was just a one-step equation. So now we're doing a two-step equation. Okay, we're gonna get a lot of practice in here. So we're gonna add 4 to both sides on both equations. Okay, make sure that when you added 4, that you got the correct answer on the right side. Notice here, your answers are not the same. They're different. So with one-step equations, your answers will be the same, but plus or minus. With two-step or more, you're gonna have two different answers. So put that right in the middle and box mates. Any questions? Check your answer if you haven't already for example 4. All right, let's move on to this one. What do you notice about this problem right here? What is wrong with it? Yeah, your answer is a negative. Can you plug anything into absolute value and get a negative? No, the only way is what Ashley said, if there was a negative on the outside right here, but there isn't. So, and looking at this right here, because there is a negative, I know there is not going to be a solution, so I put no solution. Okay. Yep. Okay, let's do the last one on this page of the last example. This one is okay, since there isn't a negative out here. So we are gonna set it up as negative x plus 3 equals 9, and negative x plus 3 equals a negative 9. Okay, and we're just gonna solve. Do not forget, this is a two-step equation because you have a negative x. And it's like a negative 1x right there, if that will help you. So let's subtract 3 on both sides, on both equations. And you end up with a negative 1x equals 6, and negative 1x equals a negative 12. And then we have to divide both sides by a negative 1. Take your answer when you're done. And then what I would like you to do is I would like you to do all of the practice problems. And then we're gonna, all the practice, and then we'll come back and check each one of those. So I'm gonna pause the video while you work. Okay, go ahead and check practice 3 and 4. And if you did not get it correct, I want you to try to figure out what you did wrong. And then if you can't figure it out, let me know and we'll go over it. Yeah, you're solving double the amount of equations, but it's less like 20. Okay. Now look at 5 and 6. Check your, whoops, let me move this down. Check your answer from 5 or 6. Huh? Yes, we're not gonna. Any questions on 5 or 6? Okay, if you didn't get to that point, just write the answer, but show your work. Go back and try to solve it because that's how you're gonna learn. Okay, 3 and 4. All right, we are gonna go to page 3. Now we're going to multi-step absolute value problems, and it's really important on this that you follow these steps carefully. And it was the first step on page 1, and I'm just gonna, you don't have to turn there, I'm just gonna read it. It says to isolate the absolute value on one side of the equation, meaning that your goal is to get the absolute value part of the problem by itself by getting rid of the 2 first. Okay, down here, you need to get rid of the negative 2 first. And then down here, you need to get rid of the 2 and the negative 3 first. So you want to get rid of everything, every number, every coefficient, every constant that is next to the absolute value. Then you can start solving like we did. So let's go back up to 7. Can anyone tell me how do you think we can get rid of that two? Okay, that is what a lot of people think, is that you want to distribute. Do not distribute. You will get the wrong answer. Yeah.
This is just a guess, but maybe.
Yes, you are gonna divide two on both sides to get rid of the inequality. He should be proud of himself. So we're gonna divide this by two, and we're gonna divide this by two. Okay, when we do that, these two cancel out. And now we have the absolute value of x plus 4 equals 4. So we've gotten rid of that coefficient. Now we can set up two equations and solve for x. So we have x plus 4 equals 4 and x plus 4 equals a negative 4. Be careful not to use this 8 up here. Okay, once you get your new equation, you want to set it up based on this. Okay, so we are going to subtract 4 on both sides of both equations. And you end up with x equals negative 1 and no, I'm sorry, 0. And 4 x equals negative 8. All right. Let's go down to example 8. When you first look at this, you think, oh, this is no solution because it equals a negative 12. But when you divide both sides by a negative, you end up with a positive 6. So in this case, you can solve this one. So we divide both sides by a negative 2. And our new equation is the absolute value of x plus 5 equals 6. And you can definitely solve this one. So be careful when you are dealing with absolute values that have terms on the outside of the problem, okay? So now set up this equation twice and solve. Right. Okay, are there any questions on those two? Anyone need me to wait for this minute? Okay. Yes? Okay. All right, let's go down to this next one. So this one, we have a 2 on the outside and a negative 3. Remember with equations, you always want to reverse out the addition and subtraction before you do the multiplication and division. So the first thing that we have to do is get rid of this negative 3 by adding 3 to both sides. Okay. And then we end up with 2 times the absolute value of x plus 1 equals 10. Now, we can get rid of the 2 by dividing both sides by 2. And now we have the absolute value of x plus 1 equals 5. And now you set up your two equations and solve. So go ahead and do that. Are there any questions? If it doesn't make sense, then I need you to ask questions. A lot of work and making sense are two different things. So yes, it can be a lot of work. Oops. But making sense is what I'm more concerned about. Go ahead and check your answer when you're done. Any questions? Go ahead and I want you to work on the practice 7, 8, 9, and I'm gonna pause the video while you do that. Okay, check practice 7 and 8.
Oh, it's much easier.
Okay, and then I'm gonna push this up. Go ahead and check 9 and 10.
How did you do?
Where do you get to?
It's 10, what? Oh, back.
It was on the back.
Example 11.
Oh, is your practice 10 on the back? Oh, 9. Oops, sorry. Okay, hold on just a second.
Now you say.
Wait until I'm done, until we have another break. Okay, so listen, I'm gonna show you why. When I subtract 9 on both sides, I get a -3. Remember what I told you is that once you get rid of everything around the absolute value, then if this is negative, then you're done. There's no solution because there's nothing that you can plug into that X to get you a negative solution. So in this case, the answer is no solution.
Okay. This is on the last page.
Yeah, this is on the back.
You go back. Yeah.
Hold on just a second.
But I got an answer.
I'll go back to it later. I want you to go to the next one. All right. Now, go ahead and do example 10 and let's see. I just want to make sure you guys understand there. Well, when you subtract 5 on both sides,
Oh, wait, never mind.
okay.
I got it. No, you can show.
Okay, because you ended with a negative right here, then there would be no solution
Wait, there is.
on both of them because. So Parker actually solved both of these in their entirety and not realizing, so you may accidentally do that, but that is a common error. I've done that. When I was doing the homework, I did that. And then when I went to go check my answers, I realized what I did.
It's on the homework also.
Yes, it will be on the homework also. Okay. I'm gonna do examples 11 and 12 with you, then you're gonna do practice 11 and 12, and then we will be finished. So,
It goes down that way.
okay, here we go. We have to get rid of the 5 first, so we're gonna add 5. And then we have 3 times the absolute value of X equals 12. And then we divide both sides by 3. And the absolute value of X equals 4. So based on what we did on the very first page at the very beginning of this lesson, what can X be? Positive or -4. So X equals plus or minus 4. Okay, let's look at 12. We have to get rid of the 4 first by adding 4 to both sides. And we get -1 times the absolute value of X equals 6. Okay, when you get to this point, remember the negative is like a -1. So I do have to divide both sides by a -1. And we end up with the absolute value of X equals a -6. What do we do now? And we did that. And we get the absolute value of X equals -6. Well, what can we put in X to get a negative? Yep, it's no solution.
Oh my god. I'm with you, August.
Now you guys can understand why I put so many problems on this, because there are so many different ways to do this, so many variations of the problem. Okay, I want you to do 11 and 12,
I think I have the answer.
and then we'll come back and check our answers. Okay, these are the answers to practice 11 and 12. Check your answers to make sure you are correct. Are there any questions on any of this? Okay, that concludes our lesson for 2.6. Your homework is lesson 2.6 practice 1 through 28. All, no review.